to the 100 Club. We are back with another squad profile in anticipation of cricket's newest tournament starting 21st of July, just a few short weeks ago. And we are going to have a look today at the Birmingham Phoenix. I'm joined by Rich.
Hello.
Hi. And Oli.
Hello.
How are things going for you?
I am disappointed that...
Really?
Yeah, I've been watching the England-Sri Lanka series. And I grew up watching Sri Lankan cricket. Aravinda de Silva was one of my heroes, and I had a Sri Lankan coach, and I've always sort of really enjoyed watching Sri Lankan cricket, but they're in a bit of a bad way at the minute. And,
not enjoying it so much this last week or so.
No, they're just not competitive, so there's a reason why none of them are playing in the 100.
There is. I mean, just the 10th wicket falling. I think we can say we're today is the day of the final ODI. The 10th wicket falling with two of the batsmen stood at the bowler's end wasn't very clever. Yeah.
They've just not looked like they're competitive, are they? They're not scoring enough runs to really put England under pressure.
No.
When they're batting first.
So looking forward to some competitive cricket, Tom, in a couple of weeks' time.
Absolutely. I am wearing today, I thought I'd flash this up, I'm today wearing my cricket whites, not because I'm anticipating a game, but my David Gower branded cricket whites from the 80s. Any reason why I might be wearing the batting shirt of an elegant left-hander?
Is it the Gower Graham Smith scale of left-handed elegance?
It might well be. So who am I excited about talking about?
It must be Moeen Ali.
He's Moeen somewhere on that scale.
One of my all-time favourites. He is clearly a Birmingham Phoenix star, but he's not the star I'm going to talk about, actually, to kick us off. Sorry. No, I'll just sit quietly in the dark watching YouTube videos of his highlights.
Yeah, lead us down that rabbit hole.
No, I'm going to talk about possibly a bigger star on the world stage, but actually an Englishman. And perhaps the most likeable man in cricket. Any idea who I'm about this time?
Is it Chris Woakes?
It is indeed Chris Woakes.
He does look like a very nice chap,
isn't he? You take him home.
Introduce him to your mum.
Yeah, until he's bowling at you and in an opening spell with the ball zipping around all over the place, and it doesn't quite look so friendly at that point. Well,
we saw it today in the ODI. Took a white ball, 12th over of it, and was moving it around pretty nicely, getting some pretty good movement with it. So we know he's a magician with the ball. We know he hits a lot of runs, and in fact, he's got 1,000 runs in Test cricket, 100 wickets in Test cricket. That doesn't happen by accident. He's got all of the skills to play in any format of the game. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he averages 25 in T20s, striking just under 140, which is, to be honest, you take that as almost as a specialist batter, and add in how good a bowler he is. He's some cricketer in this format.
He is, but I do think he has a point to prove as well for this squad. And the T20 World Cup coming up in October, he's only just come back into the England T20 format. I think he was out since 2015 almost. So he came back in for the Sri Lanka T20s, played in the first and the third iterations. But when he came back in, he's got an economy of 8.11 in T20 internationals, I think, and hasn't taken a huge number of wickets, considering his talent. So I think he'll be wanting to show once and for all that the shortest formats of the game do suit his bowling style as much as his broad talent. And in those Sri Lanka tests, those Sri Lanka T20s, I think in the first one he was bowling at 4.67 economy, which is absolutely miserly. And if you think that's good, in the third T20 bowled for just 2.25 economy rate. So not giving anything away. Absolutely gunning for his place at the World Cup this autumn.
He's just had a really odd winter, hasn't he? I mean, the England selection policy has just not favoured Chris Woakes, has it? This winter, he seems to have spent the entire winter just out there in the bubble carrying the drinks around. So I guess we'll want to just make his case on the cricket pitch again.
I think we've had it officially now, though, that the England Test team is done with rotation. Certainly for the next, few series, thankfully. So you'd like to think that Woakes is on the starting sheet, certainly for the tests, but still a little bit perhaps of uncertainty regarding the T20 squad. I don't know what you think about that, Rich.
Yeah, with the test squad, I think it depends whether they play a specialist spinner or not. I think if they play Bess, then he bats 8. And I think if they don't play Bess and go with Root as the spin option, then I think that the Woakes comes in at 8. But it's difficult for him because he's sort of fulfilling a similar role inside to Anderson in terms of that kind of spin bowling. But we're not here to talk about Test cricket, are we? We're here to
well, you say fulfills. Well, before I'm not going to let you get away with that. He does not fulfil the same role as Anderson because he adds 1,000 Test runs across a career.
Yeah,
James Anderson might get there eventually.
I think Anderson would have to keep playing for a while to get to 1,000.
Yeah. But you're right. We're doing the 100. So looking forward to seeing Woakes, local boy as well for Birmingham. Knows Edgbaston very well. But who's the star? Sorry, who's the young player he's going to have alongside? Anyone caught your eye, Rich?
Yeah, so relatively late arrival for the Birmingham Phoenix in that he was only announced on Friday. But it's the young Kiwi wicketkeeper batter Finn Allen, who has had a remarkable rise over the last 12 months, really. So he was with Auckland for 3 years, played for them kind of a wee bit, across the different formats, but actually ended up moving to Wellington last year to sort of try and get a bit more game time more than anything else. And they promoted him to Open in the Super Smash tournament, which is their domestic T20 league last year. And, it really suited him. He got shade under 600 runs, averaged over 50, player of the tournament, took Wellington to the title. And on the back of that, got himself an IPL contract and also a gig with Lancashire. And, he's been over here playing in the Blast, right time, right place. And, we've been speculating for weeks that, he would get into the 100 somewhere. And of course he has. He's relatively uncomplicated in his technique. He basically says that he tries to watch the ball for as long as possible and then hit it as hard as he can. And that's worked out pretty well for him. He has a 16-ball half century to his name. So I'm going to be fascinated to see how well he goes in the 100 tournament because we haven't seen a huge amount of him aside from his sort of stint at Lancashire. And I think it's going to be, fascinating to see how he goes.
You guys were on the live show a couple of days ago when the Blast players were announced, but who had the first pick? Was it the Phoenix?
Superchargers. Superchargers.
Just wondering how high Alan went in that.
Well,
Sorry, Carol.
He wasn't part of the draft in itself. He was part of the trading that took place just to finalise the squads before the draft.
Ah, okay.
So he wasn't taken as a wildcard pick. What he was taken as was the replacement for Kane Williamson, who pulled out to sort his elbow injury. But I think the point to be made there is Kane Williamson has not given up on the 100. He's actually still going to be alongside the Phoenix for the tournament. Is that right, Rich? So he'll be able to mentor this young up-and-coming Kiwi, right?
Yeah, he will. So he'll be around to mentor Alan, and I think that's going to be he'll also have Adam Milne around, his fellow New Zealander who's been playing down at Kent in the Blast. So
just grabbed a hat trick.
Yeah, and of course as a coach he'll have Dan Vettori, who you want to mention, talk a bit about now. I think, Oli.
Yeah,
segue.
I'm getting good at this. I've been practicing. We've talked a few times on some of these shows about there's anyone with a point to prove, and generally we've talked about cricketers with a point to prove and players. Well, this time I think that if you look, the guy who's got a point to prove is the coach, Daniel Vettori, and he wasn't the first choice. Originally, he was due to be McDonald's understudy, but it's been announced that he can't make it because of COVID. He's still going to be involved as a consultant, and will be sort of with the setup going forward in the future. But for now, it's going to be Daniel Vettori who's head coach, and he's had a number of head coach roles before. He spent time in the IPL with the Royal Challengers. He's had time in the Big Bash. Sort of ended his playing career playing Big Bash cricket. He kind of moved into a coaching role with the Brisbane Heat, and that's kind of quite a common role for cricketers moving into coaching in sort of franchise cricket. But he's not been particularly successful in any of those roles. He's had a couple of finals appearances, but for the most part, most of his teams have sort of underperformed and not been getting through to the knockout stages. Particularly when you look at the Royal Challengers and some of the players he's had at his disposal in that squad. You've got Kohli and AB de Villiers. I think the expectation levels are pretty high. And you don't want to be coming kind of bottom of the pile. With those caliber players in your squad. I think that's...
Well, you say that, but Coley doesn't win much, right? I'm joking.
That level of expectation has cost him his job a couple of times because he's generally he's been shown the door before his contract is finished. Even with Middlesex in the Blast, actually, did 2 seasons on a 3-year contract. I think they came bottom in that second year, and they brought in Stuart Law. So he's kind of having to rebuild his reputation a little bit, and he's now got the head coach position again, having not been originally he was going to be the second in command. So I think for Vettori, there's a kind of an opportunity to kind of get his reputation as being a franchise head coach back on track.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how
I would like to publicly distance myself from Tom's comments. Virat Kohli.
I'd like to move on very quickly. I get your point, Ollie. I mean, he's still named as the interim coach, so we expect McDonald to come back next year.
Yeah, McDonald has said he's still going to, he's still part of the setup. It's just COVID means that he's not in a position to travel. I think he's then got Australian commitments that kind of come straight off the back of the 100. So, given the quarantine situation, he can't travel.
Just a quick comment on Vettori, that if you go back, say, 10, 15 years, players we were watching at that time and said, who out of the current crop of players do you think is going to go on to become a good coach? I probably would have said Daniel Vettori at that point, because I always felt he was a cricketer that made the most of his abilities.
Are you sure that's not just because he wore glasses?
Academic sort of studious.
Oh yeah, he looks bright.
I think he was a left arm. He didn't turn the ball prodigiously, but he was very accurate, and he thought batsmen out really, and he turned himself into a very useful batter at number 8, and a decent fielder as well. So I always thought he was a cricketer who, I think, to be fair, made the most of not necessarily the most prodigious natural talent, but turned himself into a very effective cricketer, which I always thought would translate well into coaching. And
does he have natural talent to work with in his squad within the Phoenix, I suppose, is the question. Ollie, you'll be playing selector today. I mean, the opening bat pair, I think, is quite a difficult decision for him, straight up.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Rich?
I do. I quite enjoyed putting this team together, actually, because I had about I thought I'd come across a good team, and then I realised I had 12, which is a usual challenge. But when you've got an England Test opener in the squad, and he's not getting anywhere near the team, at least in my 11, you realise that actually you've got a pretty strong squad. Who do you go with? I went with Alan opening, because I think that's his natural spot, and I decided to partner him with Moeen. How about yourself?
I don't disagree with the logic there, and I was very, very close to having Momo, my fave, in with Finn Allen at the top, but actually I've given Ali a bit of space. Now, I think Ali is going to captain the team, so he may well put himself up the top. I know he likes opening, so I wouldn't disagree with him starting up there. But actually, I had Daniel Bell-Drummond in it as the opening partner, who's a consistent performer, does great things every year for his county teams, for any team that he plays for, has a bit of franchise experience as well. So, he's going to be up there somewhere, I think, Bell-Drummond as well.
Yeah, that's a fair shout. I think the one thing with Moeen, we touched upon it in our strategy show, where we talked about the fact that it's going to be a reduced power play in the 100s, only 25 balls as opposed to 36 in T20. And Stephen Fleming did an interesting experiment in the last kind of IPL edition, where he started throwing Moeen in at 3 for CSK. But Moeen in that format was teeing off almost from the first ball he faced, so he wasn't giving himself 4 or 5 balls to have a look. He was swinging for the fences straight away. And I think that's an interesting tactic that might be employed elsewhere in the 100, this idea of kind of the uber pinch hitter. But I think that's perfectly fair to say you bring him in at 3. I
didn't have him at 3. I had him at 5.
You didn't? Okay, you had him at 5. Okay,
I had him at 5, which is traditionally where he's done a lot of his top end batting, around 5-6 sort of region. Because I did have a place for Dom Sibley.
Okay.
Which that's controversial, I think.
Well, people
You're
keep
gonna have to
telling
make
me
a good
this.
case. But
People keep telling me this, but he can bat in the shorter format of the game. It's not what you see every time in Test cricket, and he's there. He's going to bring, he's there. He's going to play. I think he's going to bring the crowds in to a degree. I hope, and he's got something to prove. Why wouldn't you put him up there? I had him at third.
I mean, there's a reasonable sample size, 32 innings in T20, and he's striking at 120.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's not fast enough for the top four in the 100. But I would rather see the likes of Miles Hammond up there, the Gloucestershire opener. He's striking closer to 140, similar average to Sibley, similar number of games actually. But I think sort of he's got more to offer in that format.
Well, the one we haven't talked about is Liam Livingstone.
Yeah, I had him at 4. So I actually
I had Livingston at 4 as well. So I'll agree with that.
Yeah, and I think we all like Liam Livingstone. He's involved in the England setup at the minute. Very destructive hitter. I didn't have, which is surprising as a Kent fan, I didn't have Daniel Bell-Drummond. So I had Miles Hammond at 3, Livingstone at 4. Then I had coming in at 5, Adam Hose. Again, striking at 145 in T20 cricket at an average of 30.
Didn't get in my team.
Not good.
Didn't get in, and neither did Hammond.
Yeah,
and making space for Sibley.
And then I had the Somerset skipper Tom Abel coming in at 6.
I'm guessing you had Abel in as well.
I definitely had Abel, and I had him at 6 as well. So that I can agree with. I mean, this is a bit of a mess so far, Ollie. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so we've got work to do here. So I would probably open with Bell-Drummond and Allen, but I'd then have Ali coming in probably at 3 and Livingston at 4. So that's basically a lineup that neither of you suggested, but given I'm calling the shots, that's what we're getting.
Yeah,
I can live with that.
I think a strike rate of 120, is not competitive compared to some of the other players that we've been putting in our top 5s. So Sibley is carrying the drinks for the moment.
Yeah.
So
he'll be crying all the way to the bank.
I don't know what you get paid if you. Is it an addition? Do you get a little a few quid on top of your central contract, or is this just part of your expectations? I don't know. We'll have to see if we can find anyone to bring on the show and answer that question.
First dibs at tea. And so, I mean, we probably need one more to go if we're going to make my team fit. So, are you happy with Hose and Hammond?
I'm tempted to keep Hose in actually and drop Hammond, and I think Abel stays.
I think that's fair.
At 6.
I think that's fair.
Well,
that to me feels like the top.
So that's
the top 6.
That's Allen, Bell-Drummond, Ali, Livingstone, Hose, Abel. I then went with Benny Howell in at 7.
Yeah.
What do you think of him, Rich?
I had Woakes before Howell, but did you have Howell Woakes?
I had Howell Woakes, so I'm easy on there.
I think you could go either way there.
Yeah.
Benny Howell.
Maybe we'll go Woakes Howell, given we gave him the big build up at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benny Howell. I had 3.
Sorry, carry on.
Well, no, I then had 3 sort of more absolute bowling options in Tahir, Imran Tahir, Adam Milne, and Pat Brown. I don't know how you rounded that up.
No, I had the same. I think Imran Tahir for the spin option, very effective leg spinner, plays pretty much every franchise league around the world. Adam Milne, as I said, has been going really well in the Blast. Hat trick on Friday night to celebrate his call up to the 100. He wasn't the only one to get 100 on Friday night. Lockie Ferguson had one as well. So good day for New Zealand fast bowling. And then Pat Brown, obviously, is the young not Warwickshire, he's Worcestershire, isn't he?
Worcestershire.
Local icon player. I think,
Yeah. He's really sort of improving.
Yeah, and they use their local icon pick, to basically take him early before the draft proper back in 2019. So I think the coaching setup obviously see big things ahead for Brown. So
Yeah, he's right on the cusp of the England setup, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
A couple we haven't talked about too much at the moment. Will Smead, Somerset batter, really breaking onto the scene this season. I watch a lot of him. He can't be far off the middle order. The other one was the wild card, Dylan Pennington. Have you seen much of him?
No, I haven't. I'm looking forward to seeing him come in. The young fast bowler. He's obviously got a bit about him. 30 wickets in 30 games. So I think we might see him at various points.
Yeah. So he'll have been working with some of Vettori's backroom staff. I think Gidman is the head coach. Is it Worcester? I think. And so they obviously will know his work from the county game. So I imagine it was basically, it would have been his pick.
And I think we said that on the live stream, actually. A lot of those wildcard picks looked like local players with bags of potential rather than necessarily the bang-in form guy. Looking forward to 22, 23 to get them into the setup now. Yeah,
because it's interesting. Kind of thinking about that, we always had two ways that you could go. I think I'd been assuming that those wildcard picks would be somebody that, you might not be picking for the long term. You might not sort of look at their whole career and think they're going to be the player you want in your side, but you just go, well, at the minute they can do no wrong. And they just keep the form going, get 2 or 3 big scores out of them, or a couple of good wicket hauls if you're picking a bowling option. Couple of going for the future.
Couple of interesting points around the selection for me is that, one, their drafting strategy was a little bit contrarian. Most of the other franchises went overseas in their first 2 picks in round 1. These guys didn't. Actually, the lowest they picked Adam Zampa, I think, in sort of the 6th or 7th round. So they had a very different drafting strategy to some of the others. Then when it came to the players they lost out on, Williamson, I think it was Shaheen Shah Afridi and Adam Zampa, they've actually gone out and managed to replace them more or less like for like. Zampa with Tahir, the leg spinner, Adam Milne as a quick bowler for Afridi, and Finn Allen coming in as a batter for Williamson. So interesting strategy, and I agree with you. They seem to have gone for sort of young local talent ahead of sort of some of the more established names. It'll be interesting to see how that serves them.
Yeah. And I suppose, we've gone Allen, Bell, Drummond, Ali, Livingstone, Hose, Abel, Woakes, Howell, Tahir, Milne, Brown. We spoke about Woakes being a great guy, Ali being a great guy, Daniel Vettori, famously a nice guy. Will nice guys finish last on this occasion? What do we think of that squad? Not what do we think of that link. What do we think of that squad in competitive sense?
I think there's some I think the good players in there. My question, as I said in my piece about Vettori, is are they going to have the tactics, right to win enough cricket matches? His record has generally been that his sides have been losing more games than they've won, and that isn't going to get you through to the final of the eliminator, the 100. So he's going to have to put together a few more wins than he's been doing in the past.
Rich, what do you reckon?
I think that Woakes is key for them. Woakes and Hal in that all-round slot. If they do lose Woakes to the tests, that could be sort of a bit of an issue for them in terms of the balance of the side. But otherwise, I'm intrigued to see how they go.
Definitely intrigued.
Is Ali another candidate they could end up losing to the test? Do you think Ali's still possible playing test cricket?
I have him.
Assume that Woakes could get in there, but Moeen could easily be in there as well.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. And, I'd have him. But for me, that squad as it stands is not terrible. Of course it's not. It's got some really strong points. But I'm not sure. Well, might not be the favourites come the opening ball, which for this squad is when? Rich, have you got that one?
I don't have. Is it the Friday night they're playing?
It's Friday night. That's right. 23rd, 18:30 hours. So it's the first double header because the women are playing, I think, just in the afternoon, and then straight into that game at 18:30 at home at Edgbaston to London Spirit. We'll be there in form, if not in actual physical presence, on that one, in spirit. Not as the Spirit. But until then, we're going to get on some more profiles in the next couple of episodes. I think we're going up to down across to the Oval Invincibles. So do join us for those. Rich and Ollie, that's not optional for you.
We'll be here.
You'll be here.
See you there.
Thank you very much if you've been following us along. Give us a comment and a subscription, and we very much appreciate it. Until then, thank you.
Bye.
Right.